It's Chelsea,
Beebs.
and welcome to our April wrap-up. We're a little late this month, but May has been a hard month, so we're doing it now. I'm going to let Beebs start us off because she has less to say, and then you can listen to me ramble on about all the things. April was the first month that we made an actual TBR. I didn't do too bad. Beebs, on the other hand, had a really bad reading month. Take it away, Beebs.
Let's see, I read No One Can Know. I really liked her, something about Into the Woods, I think, or something like that. That one was a 5-star for me. This one was horrible, just absolute garbage. I don't know why this one was written. This one was just fucking horrible. It was just like, she was like, oh, let me just put something out. This is exactly what trash is.
You sound like me.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm sorry if you like this book, but it was absolute trash.
What did you rate it?
Nothing good about it. 2-star, and I should have gave it a 1. I read that book Stitches. It's called. It has a really cool cover, and it was such a shame that, like, I didn't like it, but that was also trash. I DNF'd that altogether, so I got rid of it. I don't have that book anymore. We both read Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. Another just fucking trash.
What did you rate it?
I rated it a 2, but like,
I also gave it a 2.
I was being nice. This was such fucking garbage. I don't understand how people like this book. There was nothing. The end was so stupid.
What did I say
There was nothing good about this book.
I wrote, this isn't a 2-star because I hate it. It's a 2-star because it's bad.
It was bad.
I was spoiled for this book of my own accord because I never anticipated reading it anyways, but I was bludgeoned to death by the foreshadowing in this book, where even if I didn't know what was coming, I was literally beat over the head with what was coming. It was like when you're playing hide and seek with a small child, like Rachel Harrison is a small child and she's hiding behind the curtain and I can see her feet sticking out from underneath, and it's like I have to act surprised when she finally comes out from behind the curtain. That's what it was like reading this book. I know a lot of my friends like it, but I am sorry, we did not read the same book.
Yeah.
I think maybe our half price is selling different versions of these books than what everyone else is reading, because I am constantly having this problem where they're like, yes, this book is so good. Oh my fucking God, 5 stars. And I read it and I'm like,
I was not prepared for that.
She started My Dark Vanessa, but then put it down and put it in the unhaul pile.
Yeah,
so I guess that says everything you need to know. All right, so I read 19 books in April, Black Sheep being one of them. I figured I would do a little stats section this time just to kind of give it a little bit more meat in the video. So I read 19 books, 6 of them were rereads, which I love. I've been trying to do more rereads this year. I'm trying not to hold on to books unless I want to reread them, so it's nice that I'm actually getting to some of them. My average rating for the month was a 3.84, which for me is really good. Because again, I'm trying not to be Chelsea 2-star anymore. I'm trying to DNF even more books instead of just suffering through them. Speaking of which, in terms of my TBR, I would consider it a success. I got to everything except for the Journals of Sylvia Plath. I am still on page 8, so I put it on my May TBR. We'll see. I did DNF 3 of the books, but I'm considering them a win because I at least attempted to pick them up. So I DNF'd The Professor. Springtime with Bronte, it's canceled. I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore, so I'm going to unhaul this, and I'm not picking up anymore of the Bronte sisters stuff. Don't like it. So I DNF'd that. I DNF'd YN. I really was not on board with the story. And I also DNF'd Evocation. I didn't even make it halfway, and I can't fucking do it. No more S.T. Gibson for me. I'm just gonna stick with Dowry, and that's enough. The first book I completed was Boy Parts. I read this on my Kindle. I gave this 4 stars, When I realized this was an unhinged woman book, I considered just returning it altogether because those typically don't work for me. And that's mostly because of the writing style. I find that when I read those types of books, I can feel my IQ drop. But I didn't have that issue with this one. I didn't have the idiotic writing style, and that really just made all the difference to me. I did try and read this author's other book though, and I DNF'd it, so I don't know if I'll continue to pick things up from her. Next, I read all of this. This is Red Comet. This is a biography about Sylvia Plath. So this follows like essentially from when she's born all the way until her death. I think she was only 30, so this is 30 years of life, and I read all of this. I did do this on audio because this book is really heavy and I have bad hands, so it wasn't gonna happen. But it took me an entire week to get through the audiobook. It was like 48 hours or something like that. I thought it was fascinating. I didn't think it was boring at all, which is something that I was anticipating going in, because just listen to someone talk about somebody else's life for 1,000 pages, I anticipate being a little bored. But I didn't have that at all. And once we got into where she marries Ted Hughes, it was like listening to a soap opera. There was so much drama, and it made me excited to pick up her journals because now I have all of the context and I won't be as confused, but I still haven't picked it up. My favorite part, I did tab one thing in here. It's because if you didn't know, I grew up in New Hampshire in a tiny little town of Jaffrey. Its population, like, not very many. It is a very small town. And there is a line in here that says, in mid-August, Sylvia spent the weekend in Jaffrey, New Hampshire with Gordon and his family. They canoed on Thorndike Pond and climbed Mount Monadnock. So she was where I lived. We have climbed the same mountain, and that was a really big deal for me. That was my favorite part on page 337. So 4 stars, really liked this. Next up, I read The Case Against Satan. I picked this up on Beeb's request. This was another Kindle book. I gave this 3 stars. I am not very familiar with books about exorcism, but apparently this was like the first one of its kind. It is very heavy on the prayer part of the exorcism, which makes sense, but I found myself skimming over like almost all of that because it's like pages and pages of just prayer and, you know, doing the thing. I feel like you could just watch any exorcism movie and be more entertained than this book. It very much focuses on like the religion aspect of the situation instead of like anything else. So if you're into very religious type books, maybe give this one a try, but I really don't think it does anything special. I read Assassin's Blade. I read this for my 24-hour readathon vlog, so you should watch that if you haven't yet. I am really glad that I picked this up for that because I blew through it in maybe 5 hours. I didn't do as much tabbing in here because I am reading this for Moss 101, but there was a few things. I didn't like this. I gave it 3 stars, but it's like so low that it's almost a 2. I just feel like it's unnecessary. I feel like a majority of the people, though now when people are reading this series, they're reading this one first because it does take place before Throne of Glass starts. When you were reading these when all the books were first coming out, you were reading this third. So I just feel like it's redundant. It brings nothing new to the table because you are told in Throne of Glass essentially what happens. You just don't have the details of the situation. And I just don't care enough about Selena. Like, I think she is such a fucking idiot. So this just really didn't work for me. I feel like if I wasn't in here searching for like plot points and connections, I would have given it a 2 like I did last time. But because of those tiny little crumbs I found, I bumped it up to a 3. I'm so ready to be done with this series. I do not know why I'm doing this to myself. Next in that video, I read Take Me Home Tonight. I love Morgan Matson. Matson is known for being like ridiculous. It's a very silly, goofy time. It's all very far-fetched. They kind of read like bad Netflix movies, but something about them just works for me every time, and this one didn't disappoint. The next book I read was Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I gave this 5 stars. I feel like it needs to be required reading. My favorite part of this book is towards the end where she is comparing, like she got like the notes from the trial and she was like reading what everyone was saying like when she wasn't on the stand, and the questions that the lawyers are asking the dude to the questions that she's being asked are just so far apart from each other. Like, it's disgusting. Like, if you want to see why the justice system continues to fail people, this book is exactly why. Like, and it's just it's terrible, but it's such a good book. I feel like it's such an important read. People rave about this book because of the writing. I found the writing incredibly mediocre. Like, I don't know what people are seeing in the writing. Like, it kind of just read like diary entries. I didn't feel anything poignant, or just like there wasn't any like really good lines. Like, I didn't find myself wanting to get a physical copy to annotate any of the things she was saying. So people talking about how good the writing is, I don't see that, but the story itself I feel is very important. Everyone should read it. I picked up Foe, which I'm really surprised that I read. It was just available through the library. If you remember, I hated We Spread. I DNF'd it. I thought it was god-awful garbage. Beebs agrees. This one wasn't that bad. I gave this one 3 stars. It's too ambiguous for my taste. I left with more questions than what I started with. And I felt like it was very obvious where the story was going in terms of like the plot twist. But I was entertained throughout. And it makes me want to watch the adaptation to see if maybe more of those questions regarding the ambiguity would kind of be cleared up some, or if it would be just as vague. Because I understand that the vagueness isn't there just to be vague. It kind of serves a purpose. Those just typically aren't the kinds of books I enjoy. I read The Bees. I saw this randomly in half price, so I picked it up on audiobook because as a Cabin H girly, you will see I have all of the bees and editions of the honeys. A book from the perspective of a bee seemed like something I needed to read. I only gave this a 3-star. I feel like if I had more knowledge about bees, I would have gotten more out of this. I don't know enough about bees and how they work and, you know, the inner workings of the hive for this story to really do anything for me. Though the author, like whenever the bees are like getting ready to like take flight, it's worded as they're revving their engines. And I laughed every single time.
Because they shake their little bee balls.
It was so funny. Like, I feel like it was a very interesting story, and it just, you know, a story, it's told from the perspective of a bee, okay? Like, it doesn't get much weirder than that. I do have a really fancy bee Bible that I'm going to get to. I feel like if I would have read that first, I would have gotten more out of this. So when I read that, I'm going to see if I can piece any more things from the story together. I read The God of Endings. I gave this 4 stars. Again, this was just something I picked up because it was available through the library. I didn't think that I was going to like it. I don't know why. I just went in thinking I was going to hate it. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked the writing. Even though it's slower plot-wise, I fell in love with the characters and was just wanting to know what was going to happen next. Colette and Leo are definitely characters that are going to stay with me for a long time. And I find myself, like, even now, thinking about what they're up to after the story ends. I did read the first 5 Harry Potter books. I was doing a reread so I could get to Manacled, which at the time of filming, I have started. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm still reading it. So all of those were 5 stars as always. I read The Last Animal, and this was my best book of the month. I gave this 5 stars. I saw this on a table at Barnes & Noble, and I picked it up because the colors were cute, and it had a little baby mammoth. And I was like, sure, it's available through the library, so I don't have to spend any money on it if I hate it. And now I wish I would have bought a copy. I almost bought a copy yesterday. I saw it in hardcover and paperback. But I just kept it in my wish list. This is one of those stories where I feel like it just really worked for me. I feel like if people take my recommendation to read it, they're either going to DNF it or not think it's very great. It's just something about it. I really loved these sisters and the relationship they had with their mother and the life that they live. And Pearl, And the end of this book like had me sobbing at work. I was on my lunch break eating my little noodles and just like sobbing because of this mammoth. I loved it. I like science and biology, and it had a lot of that in there, and I thought it was fascinating. It ticked all of the boxes I didn't even know that I had. I followed that up with Almond. This was another one that was just available through the library. I gave this one 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite book in the world, but I feel like it's worth the read, and it's not very long. The audiobook was pretty good, so.
I wanted to read that one.
Yeah, it's not bad. I don't think I'd read it again, but I don't think it's a waste of people's time. Something that is a waste of time, though, is the eyes are the best part. It took me fucking forever to get through this arc, and if I hadn't DNF'd Evocation, I would have DNF'd this one. So this one was a 2-star. I fucking hated it. I hated it so much. And going in, I thought this was going to be at least a 4-star. I know that it's very much being lumped into the same category as Mayfly, and I thought that one was just very mid. So I had high expectations for this one. I thought this one was going to give me everything that Mayfly didn't. And at the end of the day, I think Mayfly is the better book. It all comes down to execution. I hate the way this book was executed. I feel like somebody else needs to write this story because it's just not fucking working. I found myself so annoyed that by the time things really started to get unhinged and murdery, I cared so little about these characters, where all I could see was the stupidity of everything that they were doing in every single scene, and I just kind of wanted to punch everyone in the fucking face. I hated it. I do not recommend. And because I hate it so much, I know that when it is finally released, it's probably going to fucking blow up on the internet, and it's going to be like everyone's favorite book of the month, and they're going to think that it's so amazing. And I'm just here to say you're all wrong. The last book I read for the month was I Who Have Never Known Men. This was another 3-star book. This was another library book. I read this one on my Kindle. Again, it was too ambiguous for me. I wanted to know more, and I know it's written like that on purpose. I read the afterword. I get it. It's just ambiguity is not my favorite thing. I wanted to at least know where the fuck they were. I wanted some sort of answers, but because of like the perspective it's told in and the way the story goes, it makes sense as to why you never know. But it's like you spend the whole time thinking you're going to find out something, and then it ends. So I mean, I don't regret the time I spent reading it. I don't want a physical copy of it, but if the synopsis intrigues you, I would say just go ahead and pick it up. But it's very ambiguous, and just know you don't get any answers. None. You get none. 0 answers. And that was it. That's all I have for the month. May is not going too well, so hopefully next month this won't be so long and rambly. Leave me a heart emoji of your choosing, any color, to let me know that you made it this far. Give this video a like if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Beebs is waving goodbye. Do you want to come say bye?
No. Bye.
Bye. And we'll see you soon in a new one. Bye.